I'm here, Judge.
All right, thank you all. Ms. Dick, you may call your next.
All right. I'd like to call Miss Rhonda Bynum. All right. And how long have you been with the department?
Almost 8 years.
All right. And when did you get the case with Miss Brown and Mr. Broughton?
The case was transferred to me from Montgomery County in November 22.
All right. And what types of services was the mother working at that point in time?
She was in domestic violence counseling, individual therapy, parenting classes, and substance abuse classes.
All right. And during that time, how was mom cooperating?
She was cooperating well with me. We had a good relationship.
Okay. And what happened? When was
Your
the
Honor,
case?
Your Honor, I'd like to object to the relevance of this witness. This is not about this case. And that's what we're here to discuss today.
Overruled.
Okay. So what was the permanency plan in this case?
Since mom had finished services, we were going to, of course, reunify. That's always the goal of FBSS. And that was what we were working towards.
All right. And what kept reunification from occurring?
Well, at the end of the case, which is a normal practice for FBSS, we asked mom to do another hair follicle drug test.
And were there concerns after that hair follicle was done?
Yes,
Objection
ma'am.
to whether or not there were concerns, as it's backdoor hearsay.
Sustained.
All right. Once that hair follicle was done, what did you ask the mother to do?
We, at that time, there were other situations, but at that time, we determined that since services had already been done, and then there was another positive test and other concerns.
Objection, Judge, hearsay.
Sustained.
Okay. What? Okay, so we're at the end of the case. What was the next step at this juncture?
At this time, we decided to close the case after staffing with legal, which was you. We were able to close the case with a voluntary caregiver case closure agreement.
And what was included in the voluntary caregiver case closure agreement?
Well, of course, the caregiver had to agree to keep the child, and the parents, Ms.
Objection calls for hearsay as to the caregiver.
Sustained.
Who was the caregiver at that point in time?
Nikki I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name.
Monso?
Yes.
All right. And let me just back up a minute. What else happened in January right before this case was going to be closed?
I got a call that Miss...
Objection, hearsay.
Okay.
Sustained.
Did you talk to the mother after January?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you ask her about her actions in January?
Yes, ma'am.
What did she tell you?
That she had taken 52 of her prescription medications in an attempt to...
Did you ask her why?
Yes, she said that she was upset about not seeing her other son. And of course, the situation with Jacob Jr. was causing her stress.
All right. And did she Did you ask her if she'd be willing to continue to seek mental health treatment?
Yes, I did. And she remained in the hospital for 10 days, receiving care. And then we discussed her relationship with the previous counselors that she had worked with, and she had a good relationship with them. So she had decided that she would continue working with them.
Okay. And did she have health insurance in order to do that?
She had Medicaid.
All right. So to your knowledge, she would have been able to continue those services through Medicaid, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what other services did you ask her to complete as part of the voluntary case closure?
I strongly suggested and let her know that we felt that she needed to address her mental health concerns and also her substance abuse issues, and that I strongly recommended that she take the time while the VCC was in place to perhaps go back into rehab and also to work with behavioral health solutions, as we had discussed before.
Okay, and what was her response?
She was going to do that. Not necessarily, she didn't commit to rehab, but she did say she was going to work with behavioral health solutions again.
Now, you said that reunification would occur. Would it occur in a case like this, would it occur with both parents?
At the time, the way our case was, the parents were together, and yes, it was both their names were on the paperwork and they were both in agreement.
Okay, did the father ever do any of his services?
Once the case came to Liberty County, Judge Lockwood ordered that he work services. And at that time, he started his services. He actually, think maybe had one or two services before all the other issues came about that we caused us to make the decision to move forward with a VCC.
What services did he start?
He completed a substance abuse assessment with Miss Bain. And then he was going to start services with Meredith Hall for substance abuse. He did complete a psychosocial with ARAT counseling, and he had one diagnostic session with Dr. Makuro with ARAT.
All right. At the time that the case was actually dismissed in March, had he made any more progress on his services?
No, ma'am.
All right. And had he ever agreed to do a hair follicle test?
No, ma'am.
All right. Why did family-based safety services close this case without completion of services for him?
Because we didn't see an end in sight. Mr. Broughton was adamant that he would not take a hair follicle test. And as I said earlier, it's like that's kind of our final marker that everything's good. And then with the issues that came back again with Miss Brown, we just weren't able to close the case that way.
Could you have offered more services through FBSS to Ms. Brown?
At that time, no, we had already offered all the services that we thought were needed. And then we came back to the same issues. And FBSS is not meant to be open for an extended amount of time.
Subject to non-responsive and calls for narrative and counsel testifying.
Overruled.
You can finish answering.
I beg your pardon?
Let me just go back to when you say the same issues were still there, what do you mean?
Well, the main concern in this case was, of course, the substance abuse issue and then the mental health concerns. and neither one of those issues had, after counseling, had, I don't know what word to use, dissolved or gone away or been corrected or improved.
All right. And so is it your testimony that FBSS is a short-term program to provide assistance to move a family forward?
Yes, ma'am. That's, I've done this for 8 years, and that's our process. Normally, cases last 6 months, and by then, parents have shown their willingness and their ability to make the necessary changes. There have been cases that have gone on longer, but by the time it's a 9-month case, then you're really outside of our parameters. And actually, most of my cases will close within 4 to 5 months.
Okay. Have these parents shown the willingness to make changes?
Objection, Your Honor. She can't say. She doesn't have any current knowledge. She doesn't know what they've done or what they have not done.
I'm asking at the time that the case was closed. Sorry.
All right. So as to the time the case was closed, yes. Ms. Bynum, can you answer that question?
Yes. Remind me of what it was. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Let me go back. Okay. So normally these cases have, so in this case, did the department believe that this family would be able to make the changes that were necessary to transition back to a normal family life?
Objection calls for speculation.
Objection calls for speculation, and she has no.
And I was asking at the end of the FBSS case.
And it's still speculation.
Sustained.
Right. So
the court is, well, go ahead. I understand why the department got out when it did.
All right. And at the time that the department dismissed, what was the plan for the child?
The plan for the child was to stay with the current caregiver, the family member that he had been with during this case, Miss Nikki and her partner, and that the parents would show to Miss Nikki that they were able and could take care of their child, and that she would be the one to determine when and if baby Jake could go with them. And if she had any concerns for substance abuse or mental health issues or whatever, then she would contact the agency again or speak with the parents and let them know that she didn't think that was the right step at that time. The child was safe, so we therefore couldn't return the child to the parents. So we left the case with the VCC. We had it signed by all parties. We talked about it extensively so that everyone understood. And I stressed to Miss Nikki that she needed to, and to Dylan, that they needed to contact us if they felt there were any concerns or issues. And then I stressed again to Lindsay and Jacob, the parents, that they needed to be able to provide a clean drug test and even mental health documentation that they had worked with, that Lindsay had worked with someone if Nikki asked, so that they could feel comfortable that everything was like it should be and that they were appropriate to care for baby Jake.
No further questions at this time. I'll pass witness. Thank you.
I thank you, Ms. Moore.
Ms. Bynum, the incident with the pills, you said that was in January?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the closure, which was the VCC voluntary, I don't remember the whole thing, but that was in what month?
That was March.
Okay. And you are in FBSS for Liberty or Montgomery County?
Liberty.
Okay.
Actually, we work both counties.
Okay, so at this time, Liberty County FBSS is not willing to accept the case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When you talk to my client about taking the pills, isn't it true that she took ownership of her actions?
Yes.
And isn't it true that she showed remorse?
Yes.
And she said that she regretted doing what she did?
Yes.
Isn't it true that prior to that, she was being treated by a holistic doctor?
Yes.
And she had shown you what that holistic doctor had her on, correct?
Yes.
To your knowledge, after she got out of the hospital, did she continue to see that holistic doctor?
No, she did not.
And she did not. Do you know why?
From what I remember that she told me was that she felt like the pills were not working for her. They were not agreeing with her. She didn't like the way they made her feel.
So did she ever mention to you about how frequently he was changing her medication?
I do remember that conversation that this doctor was changing them frequently.
Okay. And are you aware that changing those types of medications that she was on as frequently as he was could cause her to have suicidal thoughts?
Objection. She's not an expert.
Sustained.
Did my client ever tell you that?
Tell me what now?
That changing the medications as frequently as the holistic doctor was could lead to someone having suicidal thoughts.
She may very well have said that. I do not recall that specific statement.
All right. Did she talk to you about anything that she learned at Kingwood Pines regarding the medication and how it may contribute to suicidal thoughts?
Not that I recall. I just remember the conversation where she didn't want to take them any longer because she didn't like how they made her feel.
Okay. When is the last time that you, quote unquote, worked this case?
In March.
Okay. When is the last time that you saw my client?
I saw her in court. The first time we went to court.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was a few weeks ago.
When you saw her a few weeks ago, did she appear to be under the influence?
Not to my knowledge.
So you don't have any, at this point, current information about either of these parents, do you?
Current information as far as what's happened recently?
Well, right. You haven't worked the case since March, so you don't have any information from March on, do you?
Well, yes, I'm aware of what's happened since then because I would be the worker for them. So I've been kind of
objection calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
You've been the worker. You would still be the worker. So people were staffing what was happening to you with you, right?
Yes, ma'am. And I was able to read the case and that sort of thing.
But personal knowledge.
I'll renew my objection to hearsay based on what she's been told by staffing.
Overruled.
Talking to the clients to get that personal knowledge you haven't had since March, right?
No, we just briefly spoke and exchanged hugs in the courtroom. That's the only dealings I've had with Lindsay or Jacob.
Okay, and you haven't had any dealings with the placement since March, correct?
No, ma'am, that's correct.
You haven't been to Lindsay and Jacob's home since March, correct?
Correct.
When you were in their home, was it clean?
Yes.
Was it safe and appropriate for a child?
Yes.
So you don't have, that you personally witnessed, any evidence that there would be a danger for the child returning right now? That you personally observed or that the parents have personally told you?
That the parents have told me? I've read.
No, I'm not asking you what you've read because that's hearsay and you didn't observe that. I'm asking based off of what you've observed.
The only time I've observed them since March was in the courtroom a few weeks ago.
Right. So you don't have any current information, do you? Aside from what you've read, which is hearsay.
And the documents I've looked at.
Okay, those are hearsay, right? But you yourself, have not talked to anyone or gone to the home or done any quote unquote work on the case since March, right?
Kind of. I've been involved with the case, but not face to face with the parents.
Right.
I've seen the drug test, the conversations with investigations. I've been privy to the investigation report.
Objection to hearsay. Okay, so objection to hearsay.
You've been privy to all of the information. Okay. And you know that she's given a clean drug test, correct?
I do have that, yes.
Okay. And she didn't appear to be under the influence when you saw her in March.
That's correct.
Did she appear to be under the influence of some kind of a mental health disorder or psychotic episode or anything?
That's kind of hard to say.
Okay. Was she doing anything that gave you a concern for her mental health in court?
I'm no expert on mental health issues, so I find that hard to answer.
Okay, that's fair. That's okay. That's fair. So essentially what I'm trying to get at here is that you have personally observed, meaning you saw it, not you read it. You spoke to the person, not you read, and you were involved in the staffing with the department. You don't have anything. You've already said that's only happened in March and then the one time you saw them, right?
Yes.
So you can't speak to the current situation personally because you haven't observed it. You haven't talked to the mother personally right now to find out what's happening, or talked to the placement, or talked to the father, right?
We did have a brief conversation in the courtroom.
Okay. What did y'all talk about in the courtroom?
Well, let me think a second. We talked about how they were doing. We talked about they were still in the house where I'd seen them the last time. Lindsay was involved with the horses. I can't remember all the details. That's not something, of course, that I've documented, so it's not really totally in my head. It was just a conversation about how they were and that sort of thing.
Okay. So nothing concerning.
Once again, I can't speak to that. I may have had some.
That's fine if you can't speak to that because you're not an expert.
Right.
And both Lindsay and Jacob were cooperative with the department. Even in January, they both were cooperative, right? Right before it closed?
Yes.
Okay. You trust Nikki Monceau, correct?
Yes.
You trust her enough to let her make a decision about whether or not the baby could go back with his parents or one of his parents, right?
Yes, that's how a VCC is designed.
So you believe that she would be able to recognize if my client were under the influence of drugs?
We were hoping that, yes.
Okay. And you believe that she would, that she's close enough with my client to kind of know what's going on in her life?
Yes. And we also had discussed that perhaps they would try maybe a couple overnight stays and then come back to Nikki. And if she saw any concerns or any issues with his care or with their behaviors or anything, that she would contact us.
Okay. And so you trusted her to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is still where the child is, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now she completed individual counseling, the drug assessment, the substance abuse treatment, parenting, saw a psychiatrist, a psychological, and domestic violence counseling, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As far as the behavioral health solutions, tell me if this is right. They will treat patients with a 2054 from the department, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they will treat patients if the patients have Medicaid?
Yes, ma'am.
What if a patient doesn't have Medicaid? Do you know if they would treat the patient?
I don't know that. I don't know that. We try to work with contractors that do have Medicaid, so that when cases are ended, that the parent could continue there if they wanted to.
Right.
But some of our contracted service providers are not taking Medicaid.
Okay. So it's a possibility they're not taking Medicaid?
My understanding is that Behavioral Health Solutions was, but I'm no expert on that.
I don't know if they are now, though.
I don't know. They've had some changes in their organization, but I don't know specifically.
When did those changes take place?
My understanding was just maybe like a month or so ago that they were not doing BIP, for example, which is something they used to do for us. They're no longer doing that. So that's all I basically know for sure.
Okay. Pass the witness.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Iverson.
I covered most of my questions. I would just add, there's no way of knowing what services my client's father would have continued on. You said he started them had the case not closed. Would you agree with me?
I can't hear her. I'm sorry.
All right. One more time, please, Ms. Iverson.
Yes. Okay. I'll try to speak more clearly. Because the case, you stated that my client, the dad, began his services, and you listed a pretty good list of things he got started on and the assessments that he did complete. And would you agree with me that because the case closed, there's no way of knowing how much further he would have gone in continuing with those services?
That's correct. However, it was in order to participate.
Object to non-responsive. After, correct.
Sustained.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. McGee.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. So, Ms. Bynum, just to clarify, were there any services that the mother did not complete that was expected of her in your case?
No, ma'am, not to my knowledge. There wasn't. She completed what she was asked to complete and what she agreed with to complete. And of course, that was, the case started back in Montgomery County, and those services were set up before I actually got the case. So she was already very involved and close to the end. But that's all I'm aware of.
Okay. And I believe you just testified that Liberty County FBSS is not willing to accept the case now. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the directive I've been giving from my management.
Okay. And who is that? Who is your supervisor?
Right now, today, it's Nicholas Clark.
So the case was staffed with your supervisor, and your department declined to accept the case, correct?
Correct. And prior to that, our program director had stated that she would not be in favor of closing the case if there weren't.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Okay, but why isn't the case being accepted now to FBSS?
Because we feel, and I'm sure Mr. Clark can speak to this more than myself, but we've already done everything that FBSS would do. And the fact that we're just going to keep going through it, and with the history in this case, with all the prior history, it seems like we're just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So we can't really see, especially with Mr. Broughton,
Objection calls for speculation, going back to the point that she does not have any current knowledge. She just doesn't. She can't say these things with knowledge. Calls for speculation.
Overruled.
But basically, you're saying that this request, this petition for the services, is basically just a repeat of what the department has already offered and completed with at least the mother, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We've offered everything in our toolbox, so to speak, that FBSS would offer. So it would just be doing the same thing over again.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Back to you, Ms. Dick.
Okay. Just to clarify, did the mother ever appear to be under the influence when you worked with her?
Objection calls for speculation.
objection, no time frame either.
Let me have a time frame.
Between the time you worked with her in November of 2022
to March.
Dismissal in March.
All right, overruled. You may answer that.
Once again, I'd just like to say that I'm not really an expert in that. I am not.
All right, next question.
Okay. All right. Would you describe Mr. Broughton in full compliance at the time that this case was dismissed?
Definitely not.
All right. When did he do his last drug test?
That was after, are you talking about currently or after, or just when I had the case?
Prior to the dismissal, when did he do his last drug test?
October 24th, 2022.
Okay. And the mother completed her services prior to her suicide attempt in January, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And would it be policy and procedure to have her get help after that incident?
Yes, and that's what we stressed.
Is that why you included that counseling in the voluntary case closure?
Yes.
Okay. If the parents went to Montgomery County to get services or to figure out services, would that work? Would they have to stay in Liberty County to try and get services through?
If you're asking about FBSS, it's going to be where the parents live. So if they moved to Montgomery County, it would go back to that county and someone else. Miss Howard was the original worker in Montgomery County. So that the case would go back over there and not in Liberty County.
But to your knowledge, when you met them again in the courthouse, you indicated that they were still in the house where you saw them last, correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And was the term they used?
I can't say 100%. That's what I assumed.
Okay. All right.
They came in together. I just assumed that they were together.
I see. All right. No other questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone for Ms. Bynum? All right. With that, Ms. Bynum, you are excused for now. Thank you for your time and your assistance in this matter. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Dick, you may call your next.
At this time, I'd like to call Carol Bain.
So as far as Carol Bain goes, I'm going to object to her testifying as to my client. If the court recalls, we previously requested and the court told the department to turn over things from service providers. And what they've turned over to me, I don't have anything, any reports or anything from Ms. Bain.
Yes, it's in the 756 pages you received.
It is not in what I have. And I didn't receive 750 something. I received about 456.
Hold on, let me just.
Okay, is she a service provider from the Montgomery County case?
No, she's a service provider. Well, she covered services both in Montgomery County and in Liberty County.
Give me a beginning and end dates, please.
Well, she was still a service provider up to March of 2023.
All right, but she's not provided services to the family in the last 7 months then. Is that correct?
That's correct. But again, there's a pattern that is essential in this case, which is why we are calling on her, since she worked with the mother during the time, and she has the admissions from the mother in terms of what was going on.
Okay. Well, with
The last case?
the court's not aware that she is present. Again, there is a phone number ending in 071. It's a 936 area code. So until and unless I know that that's her, then you may call your next, Ms. Dick.
Okay, at this time, I would like to call Ms. Howard.
Yes.
All right, very good. Can you start your video?
Or just hit the live or YouTube or I guess I hit it right. Where do I hit it at? I don't.
Okay.
I've never used one of these.
I don't know what kind of device that you're on. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. And are you, what is your position with the department?
Family-based safety specialist caseworker.
All right. And did you work on the case with Mr. Broughton and Miss Brown?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what was the time period that you worked the original case?
From it was assigned in July, but we didn't have our joint assessment with investigation till August the 3rd. I'm sorry, August the 1st.
Of what year, Judge?
Oh, 2022.
Okay, so it was more than a year ago, Ms.
Yes, sir.
Brown. All right, thank you. So this would have been Montgomery County or Liberty County?
Montgomery.
Okay, all right, thank you. You may continue, Ms. Dick.
Okay, so you worked from August 1st of 2022 through what date on this case?
I believe it was reassigned to Miss Rhonda Bonham, I think like in November. Is that date? I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But 2022.
Right. And were you able to work successfully with each parent?
No, I wasn't.
Why not?
Mr. Broughton wasn't cooperative with
All right.
the
And
program.
what did you ask him to do?
We wanted him to, of course, take a substance abuse assessment, which he did. The counselor had recommended for him.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained as to what might have been recommended.
Okay, so substance abuse assessment. What other services was he asked to do?
Objection also calls for hearsay, unless it was by the department itself.
What did the department ask him to do? Sorry.
Okay, the department requested for a substance abuse assessment, requested for random drug testing at the time, and also individual counseling and a psychological, I believe.
And was that for both parents, Ms. Brown?
Well, I just asked about Mr. Broughton.
Okay.
Sorry.
My bad.
All right. So how did the father respond to being court ordered to do services?
Well, initially, of course, it was reset in September for October, and he was, when asked to do
Objection calls for narrative.
Overruled. You may continue, Ms. Brown.
So it was reset in September for October.
Yes.
What types of drug tests was he willing to do?
A urinalysis, UA.
All right. And had he done any other types of drug tests prior to this time?
No. Objection calls for hearsay and speculation.
He refused.
I need a time frame. That's very broad.
Sustained.
Okay. During the investigative period in February of 2022, had he done any prior tests?
He had
Object to the extent that it calls for hearsay.
Well, sustained unless he told her or unless she has personal knowledge. That is, unless she called him.
What type of behavior did Mr. Broughton display during the course of the case?
Initially, he was, when I first met him for the joint assessment, he was cooperative. And then after that, it was like he wasn't cooperative with me. He even indicated that the agency had kidnapped his child, and also that I had put his wife.
Calls for narrative.
Overruled. You may continue, Ms. Brown, if you have anything further.
Okay, when did he indicate that the department had kidnapped his child?
August 15th, 2022.
Right, and where was the child placed at that point?
The child was placed with a relative, step relative of Mr. Broughton.
All right, and did the department make every effort to inform him of where the child was?
At the time, we had tried to have a FTM, a family team meeting with him, and that wasn't successful. So
why wasn't it successful?
He didn't participate.
All right. So is it fair to say that he and the mother were not together at that time?
Yes.
And why was that?
Objection, speculation.
Did the mother tell you why they were not together?
I believe, he had, Mr. Broughton had kicked the mom and the child out of the motel that they were staying in.
Okay. And so is that when the mother and the child, or the child went to stay with the step relative?
Yes. And after that, when we had the family meeting, that's when we learned that the mom and the child were kicked out of the hotel. And so she had nowhere else to go. And so at that point, she was able to find a relative to keep the child. And and she was going from place to place, but.
Okay. While you were working on the case, did Mr. Broughton ever cooperate with the department?
Only to take the assessment, the substance assessment.
Okay. And what type of behavior did he show toward you during the course of the case?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
How did Mr. Broughton communicate with you?
Via through phone as well as text messages.
All right. And did you have any concerns over either the text messages or the phone messages?
Objection calls for hearsay.
And I would say that the best evidence would be the text message, not her testimony.
Okay, sustained.
Right.
Sustained. So, Ms. Dick, am I understanding correctly that the last work that Ms. Howard did on this case was about 11 months ago?
I believe so, Your Honor, yes.
And some 4 months after that, the department dismissed the case with the BCD.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I understand that you were wanting to establish a pattern, and you're on your way to doing that. But given all of the aforementioned, I find this somewhat remote, if not irrelevant. So we really need to move on.
Okay, at this point, then we can thank Ms. Howard and go on to Ms. Bain.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Well, let's see if anyone has any questions of her, given the department's direct.
No.
Any cross? Anyone?
No.
Ms. McGee. All right. Thank you. Ms. Howard, thank you very much. Take care. Thank you for your time and your assistance. You're excused.
I specifically requested reports from service providers. She would have been a service provider in the old case. I do not have any reports from her because the department did not turn that over. I'm objecting to her testifying.
All right. So she'll be limited to what she can testify to based on the information that was disclosed to you.
Which is nothing.
Nothing more.
Well, in that case, she's not going to be able to testify if she's actually saying that this, of course, is the first time I'm learning that she had not received it. And previously, Ms. Moore had delayed the entire case, saying that we had to provide all of this to her, which we thought, in fact, we had. And
Well,
we were never informed that she had not received. Specifically, she would not let her client go forward with services until she got all of the mental health information.
Okay, let me know, Ms. Dick, let me know, what is the time frame that that Ms. Bain provided services for the mother?
She provided significant services from September probably through February or March, early March of this year.
Okay, so September 2022 to February, March of 2023.
That's correct.
Okay, so the court has heard that during that time, she was receiving domestic violence classes, parenting, substance abuse counseling, and individual counseling. So did Ms. Bain provide some or all of those or any of those?
I believe she provided all of those.
Okay.
I know she provided substance abuse counseling, and I believe she also provided some of the other, but I think it was primarily the substance abuse counseling. I thought she had also provided some individual counseling.
Okay. All right. And so, Ms. Moore, you don't have any of these records?
I do not, Judge. And as to Ms. Dick's previous statement, I did request and they did agree to give me those records. This is the first that she's hearing about it, but this is also the first that I'm hearing about Ms. Bain. So I can't request what I don't know about. It seems like there's more records I don't have. well, there
Okay.
obviously are.
Any response, Ms. Dick?
I have
then
one.
Ms.
Okay.
Iverson
Sorry.
and Ms. Iverson, Ms. Dick, Ms. Iverson, and then Ms. McGee.
I have gone through the case record and I have found this information. I do not understand why she doesn't have it. I'm getting the same documents and I'm concerned because this has come up before.
Well, it's come up before and it's come up multiple times and it's originated months ago, or at the very least weeks and weeks ago. So did you send these
yes,
documents?
we send those documents to her, and I'm not understanding why she doesn't have.
Can you provide her right now with maybe a Bates reference number or a page range
or a date that you sent it?
I could ask Mr. Watson the date that we sent it.
Well, I can tell you I do have the first package that he sent me, which is the 508 pages that I have. That was on September 28th. I don't have anything since then.
So when did you first learn of the name of the provider? Was it just now?
Just now.
Okay. All right.
I would ask, and I think it's imperative that we hear from this provider. If it's at all possible, I would ask that we recess and let me correct this. She did say prior to at the last hearing that we had when we attempted to go forward that she would make sure that she notified me. And
yeah, I recall. So let me.
But I can't notify of something I don't know about.
I understand. So let me see if Ms. Iverson has any response, and then Ms. McGee.
Your Honor, I would just say, and I will admit that I might be wrong about this, the first time I heard that there were 750 pages was in today's hearing. And so I don't know how we would have known that that's what we were supposed to have had until that was said. And I don't mean to be hard on Ms. Dick, it's a lot of stuff, but that's my only response.
All right, thank you. Ms. McGee.
Yes, Your Honor, I did receive some records. I did not count the pages, Judge, and I cannot say whether or not I actually saw something from Ms. Bain. Based on, the time frame, though, Judge, I am just questioning how her testimony could even, I guess, go to the department's burden today. Based on the testimony that we've already heard that she did complete her services. So that's just something I'm wondering, Judge.
Well, I think that's my my primary concern and question at this point. So I'm going to give you the last word, Ms. Dick.
Okay, my legal assistant is saying he sent 701 pages by Move It on September 28th to the opposing counsel. It went to Crystal, Lori, and Ellis.
Okay, hold on, let me see. I think those are the four that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I have downloaded. And I do see that request, but those are the four, or that I do see that package, but I believe those are the same four that I already have. And I added them up during the last witness, and it was 508 pages. I've got to get to September 28th. Give me a second. I don't know if it will let me try to re-download it now. I mean, if you want to call the rest of your witnesses, and I can try to get it downloaded to see. But
would you have 2 more witnesses other than Ms. Bain? Or 3 more if you intend to call, or 4 more if you intend to call the respondents?
Yes, I do intend to call the respondents.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to have you move to your next witness. Ms. Bain, I'm going to place you back into...
Your Honor, I apologize, but I need 5 minutes. I do.
All right. Okay.
And Judge,
So
just before she goes, I had no idea this was going to go this long. I have to go at 2. Up that bottom line right
so
here.
You're not available virtually past 2, correct?
My son has therapy. I got to go get him from the school, get him there, and then once he's in, I am available again. But I mean, I don't. It starts at 3:15, and it takes that long to get him there.
Okay. All right. So if we stop right at 2, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So with that, let's take 5. Let's take 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and get all that we can get done. Ms. Moore,
I'm here, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you.
And
Yes,
Judge,
sir.
I do want to say that I do now have 701 pages. I don't know, Miss Dick, if you can tell me what page that her stuff is on, because I still don't see Miss Bain's assessments or notes in here.
I'm having trouble with my computer. I have one screen, and I don't know how long it would take for me to go and search for it right at this moment.
Oh, it's okay. I thought you might know. I
can't. I'll be happy to find it afterwards and let you know, since we're stopping at 2:00.
So you may, with that, can we? I believe we can let Ms. Bain go for now.
Yes, and I apologize. I'm hoping that we will be able to get her back for the next set of hearing, or next hearing.
So maybe Mr. Watson can let her know that she's been excused. Actually, the court has not made a decision as of yet regarding whether she'll testify, but we certainly won't hear from her or even reconsider that today, given the time. So with that, Ms. Dick, you may call your next.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call Lindsay Brown.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay, Ms. Brown, children deserve to have stability in their home and family life, correct?
Objection, lady.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Okay, and children deserve parents who are drug-free, correct?
Judge, this is going to be a series of leading questions, and I'm objecting to them.
Overruled at this point.
Okay. You may answer.
Yes, I agree.
All right. And a child's home should be free from domestic violence, correct?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay, would you please state the name and ages of all of your children?
My oldest child name.
Just a moment.
Objection, relevance, Judge. The only child in this case is the one, and there's been no testimony about the other kids living with my client.
Your Honor, I think it's always relevant if there are other children, if the mother or father has other children, not in their care and custody.
I will take the names of the ages of the children living with her, if any.
Neither of my children live with me at this time.
Next question.
All right.
I'm sorry, it cut out. Could I get that answer again? Me and at this time, I'm missing in between.
None of them is
Sorry.
living at the time. Is that correct,
Thank
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Everyone is sounding pretty echoey.
On my end as well. I don't know what changed.
Okay, Ms. Brown, I certainly want to make sure you're not driving.
No, sir, I'm not driving. Sorry, I'm trying to get a girl home.
You're trying to what, ma'am?
Sorry, I was trying to charge her on my own.
Okay. All right, we'll try this again, but I'm not able to hear Ms. Brown well enough. So, Ms. Brown, how many children do you have, and what's their age ranges?
Judge,
2 children.
Judge, when I previously objected to that question, you asked her to state the kids that live with her. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
Well, I'm asking her now. How many children does she have, and what's their age range?
2 children. One is 1.5 and one is 8.
Okay. All right. I'm able to hear you a little better that time, I believe. So quickly, Ms. Dick, next question.
Okay. And what are the children's names?
I don't need their names.
Okay. All right. So, where do you currently live?
Do you want the exact address?
Oh, not the exact address.
I live in Cleveland, Texas.
Okay. And are you living where you work?
Yes.
Okay. And what type of work do you do?
I take care of my landlord's horses.
All right. And do you also travel on your job?
Yes, ma'am.
How often?
We have 2 scheduled out-of-town events, one being this coming week and one not until December. So few and far between.
Okay, and when you are out of town, how long are you out of town?
Just under a week.
And where will you, or have you made arrangements for the child that's in your care and custody? Not in your care and custody, excuse me. Have you made arrangements for your child to stay somewhere if he were to be in your care and custody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and where would that be?
With Miss Monto.
All right. And how long have you been living where you're currently living?
Just over a year.
All right. And where did you live before that?
New Caney.
And was it a home, a house, an apartment? What was it?
An objection.
It was a...
Oh, overruled.
It was a trailer.
Okay. Can you tell me your understanding of why the department has filed this case?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
It was brought to my attention that a report was made against me involving my child.
All right. And what do you want to have happen in this case?
I would like for my son to be able to come home.
And does that come home to you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And if he were to come home to you, where would he live?
In the home that I currently...
What type of sleeping arrangements do you have for him?
He has his own bedroom.
All right. And what would you do in terms of visitation with his father?
Objection calls for speculation. It would depend on how she felt at the time. She doesn't know. They're not in a relationship at this point.
And there's
Overruled.
no court orders either.
Overruled. What does she envision the visitation plan to be?
I would like for him to be able to participate and to have an active relationship with his child pending, I don't know how to word that, pending all of this being agreed upon. I don't really know how to answer that. I'm sorry.
Okay, would you want him to drug test before he had visitation?
I mean, I think that would be fair, being as that was what is asked me.
What was the last part of your answer, Ms. Brown?
I feel like that would be fair that he do what I've been asked to do. Sorry.
Okay, so to your knowledge, he hasn't drug tested up to this point.
I believe he took a urine analysis when this case was opened.
Okay. Do you believe that he needs other services if the child were to be placed with him?
Judge, I'm going to object to this. She hasn't.
What's your legal objection?
There's no foundation for this question. We don't know how much contact she has or what she even knows about the dad. So it would be speculation.
Sustained.
Okay, when did you stop living with Mr. Broughton?
It was shortly after the report was made. I'm not sure on the exact time frame to give you a specific date.
What report was that?
The one made on June 16th or 15th.
What type of report are you talking about?
The report that he made to CPS. That is the prior to this case.
Did he acknowledge to you that he made the report?
Yes, ma'am.
What type of transportation do you currently have?
I have a car.
And when did you get it?
I got it on Monday of last week.
Okay, and prior to that, was CPS providing transportation for you to visit your child?
Yes, ma'am.
And why was that? What had happened to your transportation?
I did not have transportation prior to that.
What happened to it?
I've not had a vehicle prior to that.
So it was not, you did not own a vehicle prior to that?
Not.
Ms. Moore, I'm not able to hear you if you're objecting.
Yes, I am objecting. I objected to relevance on all the types of vehicles she had prior, or why she didn't have them, or the relevance and.
Sustained. Next question.
Okay. Do you believe that you need services before your child is placed with you?
I don't think services would be a negative thing, but I don't necessarily think that I am in dire need of them.
All right. After the suicide attempt in January, you were asked to do additional mental health services, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do those services?
I tried to continue the services through Behavior Health Solutions, which I previously used for CPS. They would not accept me on a client basis because this was a pending case, and they said that would have to be ordered by y'all.
So when
and then
hold on, let me just clarify. So
Ms. Dick, excuse me. I'm still having from time to time, it's a challenge hearing Ms. Brown. So, Ms. Brown, let's see if you can turn off your video and if that might help the audio a little bit. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Can y'all hear me better?
Yes.
Well, so far, we'll see. Okay. All right, you may continue.
Okay.
Okay. So, from January of 2023 to how long did you try to get services with, or when did you try to get services with behavioral health service or behavioral solutions?
I believe it was within 30 days of getting out of the hospital.
And did you tell your caseworker that you were having trouble getting services?
I know that I had let either Ariel or Tracy know recently, because I did try to do that again, and I had let them know what they had said, and that was the last I heard of it.
Okay, so are you saying that you did or did not contact Ms. Bynum about getting services within 30 days of the incident, of the January incident?
No, I apologize. That was not something that I relayed to Ms. Bynum.
All right. Had you tried to, or had you gotten an evaluation done by Tri-City in September of 2022?
That sounds correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and shortly after that, you went into inpatient treatment, correct, at Santa Maria?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so despite the fact that they gave you an all clear, you were still asked to go into inpatient treatment.
I'm going to object to anything that she was asked to do as hearsay. I'm also going to object to anything about these services, because I don't have the records on these services either.
Okay, overruled as to that question.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. Did you also get an evaluation from Tri-Cities in September of 2022?
Yes.
Okay. And despite the fact that they gave you an all clear in September of 2022, did you go in for inpatient treatment for drug abuse at Santa Maria within 30 days?
Yes.
Okay. And why did you go into inpatient treatment?
Because it was the best option for the fact that I did not have anywhere to live at the time, as well as being able to work on services.
Why didn't you have any place to live at that time?
Because the baby's father and I had separated, and I was no longer living with him.
What were your concerns about living with him at that time?
We were having relationship issues.
Did it relate to his drug use?
No, it was more personal issues.
And you're certain of that?
Yes, ma'am.
When you went to Santa Maria, how long did you stay?
I don't remember the exact time frame. I want to say it was around 2 weeks.
Were you having legal issues that caused you to leave?
I was having non-communicative issues with my caseworker.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
All right. When you got out after 2 weeks, where did you live?
I went back with Mr. Broughton.
And how did that go?
Better than it had previously.
And how long did you stay together with him after that?
Until we separated in June.
And why did you separate in June?
Object to ask and answer.
Overruled.
Again, we were having relationship issues.
When was the last time you used meth?
I don't recall the exact date. Somewhere around the last failed hair follicle.
And why were you using again at that time after having completed services?
Objection, that mischaracterizes the testimony because she never said that she was using after having completed services.
Overruled. You may answer.
I mean, I don't feel like there's a good excuse or reason for that. Poor judgment on my part, I suppose.
What changes have you made in your life that make you a suitable and safe caregiver for this child?
I feel like continuing with my sobriety and maintaining that. I have a job, I have a home, I have a vehicle, I have a very good support system at this point.
Who's in your support system?
Miss Monso, Miss Wade, my father.
How long has it been? Your reunification with your father is recent, correct?
We have always had a very good relationship.
Objection, non-responsive. Also objection, relevance to the question.
Sustained as to non-responsive.
When you first got your son back, how long did you have him for?
Can we get a time frame?
I believe it was May. Is that when y'all started the visitation, the longer visitation?
During the VCC?
Correct.
We only did 2 transitional visits before this case was opened.
Had you asked for it to occur sooner?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
I wanted to make sure that I wanted to make sure that baby's father and I were on the same page. I didn't want to bring him into a situation that was not stable.
All right. So that was for 1 week. And then you had another 1 week visit. Is that correct?
Roughly, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at what point did you take him to Miss Monso's when the incident with Mr. Broughton started?
So I believe the date, it was 2 days prior to the report being made that he was brought back to Nikki's.
Okay, so once you brought him back to Nikki's, did you return or did the two of you take him to Nikki's?
No, Miss Christy Wade and I were the ones who brought him back to Nikki.
Okay, and why did you decide to bring him back right then?
Mr. Broughton and I were starting to have issues, and before, in the event that anything were to escalate, I didn't want him around that, so I brought him back to Nikki's.
Okay. What did Mr. Broughton do when you took him back to Nikki's?
I don't recall him specifically reacting any specific way.
Okay. And then how long did the discussion with Mr. Broughton continue?
Roughly over the next day or two, but he was at work and I was at work an entire day, and then the next day was the day that the report was made.
Okay. Were you ever hospitalized? During that time period.
I went to the hospital. I don't know if it was on the 16th or if it was the next day, but I was not admitted.
Okay, and who called to get you to the hospital? Who called to make sure that you went? Or
suggestion calls for speculation or hearsay.
She should know whether she made the call or not.
Overruled.
I did not make the call.
Okay. And when did an ambulance arrive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what did you tell the ambulance attendants?
I believe that I told them that Mr. Broughton and I had been arguing, and the paramedics asked me if I would like to go to the hospital. And given that I was aware that a report had been made, I wanted to make sure that there was a record of being checked out, since I do have a history based on the event in January.
Okay. So when you got to the hospital, what did you tell them?
I told them that my, at the time, fiance and I had been in an argument. And I mean, they basically just did vitals, and they had a nurse practitioner come talk to me and ask me a bunch of questions.
Okay, and what did you do when did you leave the hospital? How soon did you leave the hospital?
Within a couple of hours.
And did they make medical records of that visit?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Were you aware that you were asked for medical records of any visit like that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So where did you go when you left the hospital?
Back to my house.
And who was living in the house?
Myself and Mr. Broughton.
And how did that go?
At that point, we pretty much just stayed separately to ourselves.
Okay. And did you make any attempt to pick up Jacob Michael?
Not at that time, no.
When did y'all actually split up after that?
To be honest with you, I don't recall how long after, somewhere between 2 weeks to 30 days. I don't remember exactly how long it was after that.
So it's possible y'all were still together in July of 2023.
If so, very briefly.
Okay, and who moved out?
Jacob did.
And where did he go?
I am not certain on that information.
All right. Did he ever wreck your car?
Objection, relevance.
Give me a time frame.
From the time the case was dismissed in March to July of 2023, did he wreck your car?
All right, overruled. You may answer that.
He wrecked the vehicle that I guess you could say was a shared vehicle, but it was not in my name. It was not my car.
Whose name was it in?
Can we also clarify he wrecked? What does that mean? Was he in an accident, fender bender? Can we be more specific in that question, please? That's my objection.
Sustained. Sustained.
Okay. To your knowledge, did he live in that car for a while?
I mean, I don't know. I was not in contact with him after he left the house.
When was the last time you've spoken with him?
I've briefly texted him in passing just on court dates and making sure of dates, but not any kind of long drawn out conversation.
Okay. Have you provided any financial assistance to Ms. Monso over the 11 and 12 months she's taking care of Jacob?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what type of assistance have you provided?
I have made sure to bring basically any of his needs: diapers, wipes, food, clothes, toys, anything that she lets me know that he needs or that I know he's going to need on a regular basis.
Do you currently have Medicaid?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it ever disrupted?
Yes, ma'am. It's still kind of touchy at the moment.
And why is that?
Just because of the COVID extensions ending. So instead of a full Medicaid, it's like a partial Medicaid for myself. The baby still has full Medicaid.
Okay. So you could conceivably still get mental health treatment if you chose to.
At this time, I'm not sure. I'm still waiting on an answer from them on that.
Do you think it would be protective towards your son for you to receive mental health treatment?
I mean, I don't think it would be detrimental.
Do you anticipate that there could be challenges with communication with Mr. Broughton, given your history?
Doesn't call for speculation.
Overruled.
I don't have any concerns about that at this time, no.
Why?
I think due to the amount of time apart and the fact that I personally feel like we're on the same page on our communication is centered on the baby, and I feel like he's in agreement with that. I don't feel like there's going to be any communication issues.
So what do you think you're in agreement on as far as the baby goes?
That the baby's best interest is the only thing that we need to be focused on.
And who would have primary custody of the baby?
I mean, I would assume myself. I think that's what we've all been discussing.
And what type of visitation would the father have?
objection called for speculation. This is something we'd address in mediation. Like, she doesn't know.
Well,
and legal conclusion.
I think it's been asked and answered. So let's move on. Before we do, waiting for the next question, Ms. Brown, is there any Attorney General orders regarding child support and right now regarding this child?
No, sir. His Medicaid had come up for renewal, and I know that the state had picked it up. But at the time, as of right now, I believe everything is still pending because he's not in anybody's technical custody at this point.
All right, next question.
Okay, have you been to the OAG office to discuss your case?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And have you filed any type of application?
I have not specifically. Like I said, I know the state had asked me a bunch of questions over the phone.
What is different now than in March of 2023? What is different?
Asked and answered.
It's sustained.
What will you do if you get your child back and you have concerns again, as you did in June of 2023? What will you do to deal with, to be protective of him?
Miss Monso, as well as Miss Wade, and I have both discussed if there's ever any concern or question as to his safety or well-being, that they are both available at my disposal in the event of any of those situations.
No further questions right at the moment. I'll pass witness.
Thank you. Ms. Moore.
You were asked if you would want Mr. Broughton to take a drug test, and you said you think it's only fair if he has to do what you have to do. So does it cause you concern that at this point he hasn't drug tested and you haven't had any contact with him, so you don't know what he's doing?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay. Would you ever allow your son to be unsupervised with him if you weren't 100% sure that he was clean?
No.
Okay. Who did you talk to about the Medicaid that you're waiting on an answer for?
The provider that my Medicaid is through.
Okay, so you contacted them about mental health services?
No, I contacted to see if I was able to still go to doctor's appointments because they've changed the type of Medicaid that I have. And as far as I'm aware, it just covers like birth control and things like that. I don't believe it covers doctor's visits and things anymore, but they have not given me a definitive on that.
Right. So the Medicaid that you had when you had your child covered everything, vision, dental,
Correct.
Everything, right?
Yes. Yes,
but then
ma'am.
once the baby hits a certain age, as a female, you're only covered for birth control and for your yearly annual checks with the gynecologist, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as far as behavioral health solutions goes, you couldn't qualify as a private client because you don't have Medicaid that covers that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You said that you separated in June due to relationship issues. Part of those relationship issues is the fact that he called in a CPS case that wasn't correct, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, that doesn't make anybody happy, does it?
Not really.
The other relationship issues that you had, well, did you hear Christy testify in the beginning about kind of some of the arguments that she had observed, like, who are you talking to and why won't you help me get groceries? Did you hear that testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the type of other relationship issues that you had?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you say personal issues, it's stuff like that, like maybe suspicions of cheating or proportion of housework?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's not due to drug use, is it?
No, ma'am.
It's not due to violence towards
No,
each
ma'am.
other, is it?
No, ma'am.
The room that you have set up for him, you don't have his furniture in it right now, do you?
No, ma'am.
Where's his furniture?
All of his personal belongings are with him at Miss Monso's.
So when he went over there, you provided even the crib, the mattress, all the clothes, everything.
Yes, ma'am.
So when he comes back, your plan is to just take those items and back, and then you can set his room up. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I know that you said you don't have issues about your communication with Jacob because you guys have spent some time apart. So you're not arguing about those little relationship things anymore, right?
Correct.
But you do understand that it could happen that you guys don't always agree on how everything goes for your son, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so if you guys had a disagreement about something with your son, do you believe that you have the tools to know when it's escalating and everybody needs to have a timeout?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to you getting a vehicle, could you walk away and have a timeout?
Not really.
Okay, because you're both on the same property, right?
Right.
Okay, so you would have to walk pretty far away.
Right.
All right, so now you have a vehicle that is yours, that if you need to leave a situation, you can do that, correct?
Correct.
Why didn't you want to get a hair follicle when this case started?
Like I told them, I knew that I had tested positive, and Miss Bynum had told me how high the levels were, and I had concerns that there was still going to be trace levels on this next hair follicle. And because this is not the first case, I didn't want to risk anything to a trace level.
Okay. Do you understand all of the ins and outs about drug testing?
No.
Were you willing to drug test weekly or more than once a week on UAs if they requested it to show them that you were sober?
Yes.
How many times were you requested to do a UA?
None other than the initial one.
Okay. And then you just recently were asked to do a hair follicle, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk about the family violence because when Ms. Johnson testified, it was a bit confusing for me as to what you actually said. So when did you first have a conversation with anyone from the department about domestic violence?
There may have been a brief conversation prior to the family team meeting, but I know the bulk of them bringing that up was during our family team meeting.
Okay. When they first asked you if there was domestic violence, how did you respond?
I told them no.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then they asked if I understood that domestic violence does not just mean physical, it can be mental or emotional as well.
And how did you respond?
I told them that in that regard, that we were probably both guilty of that.
Okay. From that point forward, when you talked to them about domestic violence, is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
Has he been hitting you?
No.
Have you been hitting him?
No.
Have you guys been pushing each other?
No.
Slapping?
No.
Punching?
No.
Nothing physical. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, have things in the home been broken?
Yes.
Because somebody was mad?
Yes.
Okay. Have you guys both said things to each other in anger that you didn't mean?
Yes.
Have you guys both tried to hurt the other person's feelings?
Yes.
Okay. Are those the things that you viewed as emotional or mental abuse?
Yes.
Okay. If at any point there was domestic violence in your life, whether it be from him or from somebody else, do you know how to handle that?
I think so, yes.
What would you do?
Leave the situation if at all possible.
Okay. And then after that, what would you do?
Try to readdress when everybody's on a calmer mind frame.
Okay. If you believe that it couldn't be readdressed and that you were in danger, would you take Miss Johnson's advice and would you get a protective order?
Absolutely.
If you believed ever that your son were in danger around anyone that was in your home or even around yourself, what would you do?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? My phone cut out.
That's okay. If you believe that your son were in danger because of anyone in your home, what would you do with him?
Get him out of that situation and not return him to it.
Okay. If you believe that your son was in danger because you were having a difficult time emotionally, what would you do?
Reach out to either Miss Monso or to Miss Wade.
And in fact, those are the things that you've done in the past, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You heard Miss Wade talk about when you reached out when you were a new mom.
Yes.
So what were some of the things that you were kind of dealing with then? I mean, obviously hormones, but like what was going on that you needed a break?
I was not used to being a stay-at-home mother, and it was extremely overwhelming not to be able to get any time outside of the home. He was a preemie baby, so I was not able to really take him out and do anything. So we were kind of stuck in a box.
Right. Okay. And also, I'm assuming not getting sleep.
Absolutely not.
Right. Okay. Do you believe that that was a good decision on your part to take a mom break?
Definitely.
If you needed to take a mom break in the future, would you?
Absolutely.
Now, you have a good relationship with your father, right?
Yes.
And he's a great support to you. Is that true?
Yes.
And then you said Miss Wade, that's Christy that testified previously, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want you to tell me a little bit about your home. So you've heard everybody that I've asked say that you're a good housekeeper and your house is clean, safe, and appropriate. So tell me what it looks like as far as like how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms?
It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom trailer home. The baby has his own room. I have a room, and my dogs have their own room.
Okay, what kind of dogs do you have?
I have a Greyhound mix and then a Terrier mix.
Okay, so just shelter dogs, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other animals?
2 cats.
Okay, and how do the cats and dogs get along?
It's a 3-ring circus, but my dogs have kennels and my cats know that the bed is the safe place.
Okay. Now, during the 2 transition visits that you did where he was there for a week, how did he do with the animals?
I am very specific about how I feel about children and dogs. My dogs are not loose in the home when he is in the house. They are either in the yard or they're in their kennels. He has interacted with them, but it is always supervised and it's very limited just because he is so small.
Ms.
Now,
Moore,
I know, yes.
Excuse me, please. I believe we might need to stop there. It's 1:56. Ms. Iverson, you're unavailable on the 20th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe the mother might be unavailable on the 20th too. Okay.
I think that's right.
So going forward, how does everyone's schedules look?
I can do that.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
just need that break in the smack middle, just right around lunchtime. I need that tiny break, and I'm good.
Okay, so the rest of us might get lunch.
You're right, exactly.
Because of Ms. Moore and Ms. Iverson. Okay, so we appreciate taking one for the team. Okay, now this is dependent upon, by and large, upon Mr. Hip being able to do Apodaca on the morning of the 26th. But I'm officially continuing this hearing, the Broughton Brown matter, to 1:30.
And are we on Zoom for either of those? Are those both from the same county? Sorry, I've been out for 3 weeks.
No, that's okay.
Is Apodaca in Liberty County, or is that Chambers?
Apodaca is Liberty County, and I plan on doing that one in person.
Okay.
I plan on being there in person. I'm going to, unless there's an objection, I'm going to continue this matter to be done virtually. So it might mean that I'll physically be in Liberty County, but doing this virtually that afternoon, but who really cares?
Right. And Judge, just obviously, my whole schedule changes if I'm not allowed to do the morning virtually, because then I've got to be back in Houston by 11:45.
I'm gonna. Yeah, I will approve you appearing virtually that morning.
Thank you.
So if somebody can get a hold of Mr. Hipp,
I just texted him, but whether he responds, I don't know.
He may not have heard about the 27th yet. So, but
he's traveling a little bit more than I am.
All right, it's a little after 2. So anything else before we go? Okay, and I trust you all will settle the best that you can the issue regarding I forget her name right now. But Bain. All right. So, okay. If there's not anything else, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Please take care, and we'll see you. We'll see you the 26th, if not before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, this hearing continues virtually.